Hello. Right, as usual, I do have a card here. Sonic music on there. So yeah, love addiction. Absolutely, I have my own opinion on that, but at first, obviously, Helen Fisher had a wonderful. I mean, I actually watched that twice, and she's so excited about what she's doing too. And they're demonstrating that the low thought and emotions and deep down in the reptilian mode, what they're finding is in that area there is just a spray of dopamine that gives this sense of primal need, urge. Now, Souza would say that, don't break things down to, to the biology. Love is more than that, though he did say that the study of it could give better light to the situation, to explain better, get deeper insight, but not be like a complete explanation. And I'm kind of more towards Helen Fisher, but I do believe there is something special, which could just be what's genetically put inside of us. And it was interesting that Helen Fisher talked about her studies that she's going to be releasing on the biology aspect, biological, genetic. I'm assuming in some fashion or form, but the fact that the MRIs that she was doing, like the ones where they would put somebody in and show them someone that they love in the same areas that cocaine lights up, and when a person who is looking at a past loved one, the addictive, the craving areas light up very similar when somebody is craving for a fix of drugs. So there's definitely an overlap going on, but I think that happens with us in all parts of our lives, that we can't help the physical, that we are physical, and that we are psycho-spiritual of some sort. But it not only is in such things like that, that's more, psychochemistry and whatnot, but there's also behavioral, and it has very similar aspects, taking risks, being so focused and obsessed, you actually forget to do certain things and stuff, and it affects you. It can affect you negatively. It can make you overeat, and this behavioral is very similar to people who are getting high and then losing that high. The feeling of that potency, I guess, of that potency of that burst of dopamine is what you begin to long for. But of course, there has to be some similarities to. I'd have to look into if there's similarities to somebody's love of chocolate or something. Like how much difference is there in that? But I just don't think you can really separate the physical from the spiritual or the animated energy that we are. But it is, I think it can be an addiction. had a very serious breakup. Serious for me because it was 4 years before I got over it. And during those 4 years, I had lost all my love to play music, to paint, to care about, the cleanliness of my car. I mean, it was just horrendous. And when there was one day I found myself picking something up off the floor, and I just stopped and I just stared, and I just was like, how can I possibly value anything without him being there? And it was, I don't even know how I would have come out of that moment had my sister not come in. Not like so negative, I just don't know how deep I would have ended up going further even in, but my sister walked in and she just casually, just a little bit of, she said, are you just staring at the floor? And I was, and it just like, and I felt like this, almost like this Forrest Gump moment. It's just like, yes, I am staring at the floor. And it changed, and I decided that day, I said, where was I? Where did I gain all of that confidence? Where did I gain all that esteem to be able to create all this music and to gather the knowledge that I have to create what I have created? And it was always because I always focused on the thing that I love, which is the creation, gaining knowledge, my music, my painting, and everything. And so I decided that is what I needed to do. I needed to start my music back up again, but this time, instead of just being a strummer, which I had been, acoustic guitar, but I always had a pick, decided I was going to do some finger picking, and it pulled me up out of that. And I started saying yes, no matter, within extreme reason, I was able to say yes to just about everything. When people would, hey, you want to come with me here? Sure. I'm going to McDonald's. You want to ride? Sure. I'm going over to this friend's house. Sure. And it transformed my world, actually. But it was 4 years, and it was about 4 years that I had been with, and I've kind of caught on to this concept that if you were with somebody 5 years, it's going to be about 5 years before you can fully let that go. And there's still always that back of the mind, even though it's like there's an immediate understanding that no, that can never happen, but there's still that connection, the time period when it was bliss. So I also think cultural is what I have down here also, because culturally, having a family, going to work, coming home, and having that feeling of being sort of in sync with your community can greatly affect the way that you love your family. You love your wife, you love your children, everything, and you just love the concept of being, a good man or a good wife, good mother, good father. And that in and of itself, I think, could be a part of that addiction, because it ends up giving you a certain amount of purpose in that sense. So I add that on there. So you get the, the behavioral. People act different. People don't necessarily act in their best interests. They'll allow themselves to do things sometimes they shouldn't because of that possibility. So do I think that love is addictive? Yes. And just like addiction, when one doesn't want it anymore, one can, if it's not serving you anymore, if it's harming you, then you can do the same, and that is to stop. And usually, actually, when you're in love lost. It's a matter of, people like go over, what did I do wrong? How can I improve this? Can I possibly win them back, etc. But really, it's actually more along, I think, to get over things is to focus back in on your inner loves, your purpose, and in that you will find the answer, whether you go back to a person or not. And you can look at the concept of not just look at what you lost and what you may have done wrong. It opens up the possibility of something even better to come along. In fact, that's usually the way it's seen. So that is my opinion. And essentially, yes, I think love is addictive, but I don't think it necessarily is out of our control given time. Alrighty, and thank you so much. I really love the look of that house and everything, and I appreciate your long response in comparison to my long one. Alright, good night.